So it's what it says on the tin there, really. This is all about the local plan review, and we're going to go through being at the pre-submission stage, us publishing the plan formally submitting it, and then what will happen when it goes on to the examination. So there we all are again listed there. So on the first slide, many of you will be familiar. Sorry, I'm doing that thing in turning bits of paper as I'm talking. I hope that doesn't upset people. We've got a local plan at the moment, and many of you will be very familiar with the core strategy and the site allocations and development management policies plan. So those two things together form the current local plan. But clearly in the diagram you've got there, we're moving on to the local plan review. So what we've done, it says it there, we've combined those two documents, we've updated them, we've added things to them, and we'll tell you about some of those aspects in a little while, to form the local plan review. The reason we need to do a review is that the inspector at the, excuse the jargon, but the SADEMP, the title of that plan is rather long and difficult for us, but it's SADEMP to those in the know. The inspector said that we needed to review that and do that very soon. So we started that process in pretty much 2016, 2017. And then the new local plan will go to an end date of 2036. The government has various requirements, as you can well imagine, about local plans, and we are required to kind of update them every 5 years in any case, but that's what we're doing, so we're in the middle of that period. The local plan has to be up to date because we want to make sure that we're consistent when we make our decisions on planning applications, and the local plan is the kind of go-to first thing for the development control planners to refer to. And there's a clause in one of the planning acts that says you make your decision in accordance with the local plan unless there are other material circumstances. And I know some of you have attended training sessions where we've talked about this and what material considerations and circumstances might be. The other thing is the government is really at local authorities to get a plan formally adopted by 2023. So we're on track to be able to do that. So that's the background to where we are, where we're coming from, and why we need to do it. So on the next slide, here's a very schematic version of the formal process that we are following. As I said, the review kind of commenced in about 2016. We're really moving towards item 2 there, and the second bar on the chart. We've got the arrow there, obviously trying to point that out. And we're kind of moving to the submission. So what will happen is that we formally publish the document. The stage is called publication, so there's a clue there. And we'll give a minimum of 6 weeks. I think we'll probably end up giving people 8 weeks to make representations, because we are going to be doing this partly over the summer period, but we'll come on to that. So just kind of backing that evidence that we've used, we did a consultation back in 2019, and since that point, the local plan task group has been going through the kind of responses that we got from people, new information coming along, and they have put together a version for pre-submission consultation. There's lots of jargon here. I'm sorry if it's a bit confusing, but basically the version that will be agreed by Cabinet and Council. But it has been previously kind of agreed by the local plan task group, and they've recommended to Cabinet that they should agree it and then go out to this consultation period. It does require the agreement of the full council to take the plan forward. It's one of those kind of decisions that local authorities make that has to be made by the full council. So looking back at the chart, we're moving to that submission period, and we would then submit the plan to the planning inspectorate. Essentially, you submit it to the Secretary of State, but the planning inspectorate kind of deals with all of those arrangements for examining the plan. So that's where we're looking to get is submission. Obviously, the other stages are there just to kind of fill it in. The inspector holds an examination, writes a report. Hopefully, he recommends that the local plan can be adopted, and then the local authority goes through that final bit of the stage. So that's a kind of précis of where we're going, and we're kind of at 2 going on to 3. So if we move on to the next slide, just a little bit about the key elements of the plan. This isn't a kind of canter through every single policy. Colleagues will take you through some of the kind of more important parts and changes that we've done. What we say when we talk about the key elements here, what I wanted to just tell you, it does go to 2036. So you've got essentially a 15-year period for the plans, the proposals in the plan to start coming forward and be used in determining planning applications. Because we put 2 documents together, we've been able to kind of restructure the way it reads and the way it's presented. And we hope we've given a kind of clear vision and an explanation of what the strategic policies are. As it says there, we've updated, we haven't changed the kind of purpose of the policies, but we've updated them in line with the National Planning Policy Framework and Planning Policy Guidance. That's something we have to do. But also, you'll imagine that the Borough Council's kind of aspirations and ambitions have moved forward over the period since we prepared certainly the SADEMP plan in 2016. So we've updated kind of for the corporate objectives and tried to incorporate those into the plan. The very headline kind of geographical location kind of element of all of this strategic direction of growth is basically we've identified those places, Kings Lynn and the areas around it, Downham Market, Hunstanton. But what we've also done is kind of tried to base that on those corridors along the A10 and the rail corridor that stretches down to Cambridge. Amongst that, we find Watlington and on that line. So Watlington to us is an important place on that strategic corridor. But you'll see Marham is mentioned there. Now that may not be a surprise to many people understanding the kind of economic and significance of the airbase and the employment that takes place there. So Marham is one of our kind of the terminology is Peter will remind me what we term it, but it's a kind of special key rural service centre, if you like. It's a location along with Bircham Newton and the CITB. They're kind of hubs in West Norfolk, and it's important that we kind of nurture those. So certainly that's why you see Marham on the map. If we move on to the next slide, Peter is going to take you through the housing and a few of the other slides. So I'll shut up now and let him come on the screen.
Yes. Thank you, Alan, and good evening, everybody. Yeah, turning to housing. Housing is always a very key topic in any local plan. The government has a national target to build 300,000 plus homes by the mid-2020s, and the Borough Council must contribute towards that. The government sets a local housing needs figure for the borough. This is set by something called the standard method. And this is something that the borough's plan must meet with some added flexibility on top. One thing we're very keen to do is retain control, local control of planning decisions. I think that's very important. And to do that, we need to do three things. We need to have an up-to-date local plan. So we need to have reviewed our local plan by the government deadline of 2023. We need to maintain a 5-year or more supply of housing land. And we also need to pass the government's housing delivery test. Next slide, please. So currently the local housing need, which as I say is determined by this standard method, is 539 new homes per annum. Over 20 years, the maths gives you a figure of just under 11,000 to provide. With added flexibility, the plan will provide for something just over 16,000 new homes in the plan period to 2036. The way that is met is by a mixture of allocations, permissions, and also making allowance for windfall sites. Turning back to the 2016 plan, we had to meet a much higher housing figure, a housing figure of about 700 per annum. The result of that really is that this plan doesn't absolutely need to make new allocations. We only propose to allocate 2 new sites in this plan, one in Marham and one in Tone St Clement. We've also been able to deallocate some sites as well, because one of the key things that we've measured against is deliverability of what's in the plan. So if sites aren't coming forward and are showing no signs of coming forward, we'll take them out. To turn to that point around flexibility, the plan allows for development both within development boundaries and also for small scale development outside, but provided it's reasonably related to the settlement boundary. This is part of meeting those windfall allowances. Next slide, please. So the plan isn't all about development. It also covers topics like conserving and enhancing our natural and historic environment. This version of the plan contains a new climate change policy, which is part of meeting the government's commitment to being carbon neutral by 2050. In the future, developers will need to provide a sustainability and climate change statement with any planning application. We also have policies protecting the natural environment. Highlighted there are European sites, are habitat sites of international significance. We have a new policy which seeks to conserve and enhance the Norfolk coast area of outstanding natural beauty. And we also have the normal policy approach to conserve and enhance our important historic environment. Slide, please. The plan also has a number of supportive policies, things that we want to promote and encourage. Again, on the point of windfall, settlement boundaries are defined for the smaller villages and hamlets in this local plan review. They will allow for small scale development to take place in and around those smaller villages and hamlets. I know a number of you will have been involved in the neighbourhood plan process or are still involved in that. That process is supported, recognising existing neighbourhood plans and also committing to assist with the preparation of new ones. We have policy approaches that support the provision for custom and self-build houses. We have policies setting out a framework for the provision of affordable housing, so setting thresholds and percentages to provide, and also providing for specialist housing needs like housing for older people and people with special care requirements. The economy is important in the plan. We have policies promoting employment, land and uses to support the economy to recover and diversify. The supporting infrastructure provision is covered in a policy that sets out the approach for community infrastructure levy and also for Section 106 requirements on planning applications. There are also specific requirements in development management policies and also as part of the allocation policies for particular sites. We also commit and need to work with other bodies to provide infrastructure and supporting services. And the final point there is around the economic regeneration of the Kings Lynn riverfront. We've combined the 4 existing allocations in that area into one regeneration area, promoting the regeneration of that location. And then just on to the next slide, I think, where we hand over to Katie.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Good evening, everyone. So this slide is really to draw your attention to a variety of supporting documents that you will now be able to find on the website, which I've highlighted here in the red circle. And as you will know, authorities preparing local plans must gather evidence to inform the effectiveness of meeting the future needs and opportunities of one's area. And a local plan must be accompanied by a range of up-to-date information and evidence-based studies to justify the plan and the proposed policies put in place. So there's numerous key documents that I could draw your attention to now, and won't go through them all at this moment in time, but please do, when you have a chance, go onto the website and you'll be able to find them all. And some of the key documents to draw your attention to is, say, the viability study, the sustainability appraisal, and the habitats regulation assessment. For example, the sustainability appraisal, this is a systematic process which has to be carried out through the preparation of local plans. And its role is really to promote sustainable development and to make sure that we're assessing the extent of which the emerging plan, when judged against reasonable alternatives, will help to achieve the environmental, economic and social objectives for sustainable development. And also another key point to bring up is the viability study. And the role of the viability assessment is primarily to ensure that the policies put in place are going to be realistic and deliverable, and the ones being created are based on the types of sites that are likely to come forward. And another point I really wanted to talk about kind of links to what Peter just mentioned, and that was neighbourhood plans. And neighbourhood plans, as most of you will be aware, and I did see some names who have been part of neighbourhood plans in the meeting tonight, that they're very popular in the district. And I'd say there's around 36 parishes now that myself and Alan in particular deal with in helping them with the kind of preparation and getting to the adoption stage of completing them. And I just wanted to say how it's really great to see how many how many communities are really getting involved in neighbourhood plans, and we're seeing some really great ones. And there's 6 adopted neighbourhood plans at the moment, and 4 are waiting to start their referendum next month, which is great news. We've also got 1 at the decision stage and around 3 at the examination. So just off the top of my head, but there's so many out there that are kind of at different stages, and it's really great to see. And neighbourhood plans obviously play a really important role next to the local plan once adopted, since they will carry full weight as well. So I just wanted to make that point. The next slide, we just wanted to draw your attention to the consultation portal, and it's really to just refresh our brains of kind of what you'll be viewing soon when it gets to the pre-submission stage. So we've recently had a bit of a revamp of the consultation portal, so it might look slightly different to when you maybe can put in your representations back in 2019. And I just wanted to kind of briefly take you through the sorts of things you'll be seeing to understand. So obviously the About This Consultation tab, this will mainly be where you'll be able to see the overview of the event and the list of supporting documents, which I just briefly showed on the previous slide, and also our contact details. And the Proposal tab in the middle, This will be where you'll be able to read the local plan review document itself, and this, as you'll be able to see, is broken down into different chapters. So it'll be easier to kind of find maybe the specific sections that you kind of want to pay attention to. And also, once like representations start to come in and get posted, you'll be able to see on the what people say slides, as it kind of says, the sort of comments and attachments that people will be able to see as the consultation is live and ongoing. So hopefully that kind of just refreshes everyone's brain a bit as to what we'll be seeing in due course. And the next slide is really to just draw everyone's attention to the interactive policies map, which at the moment we do have on the website, which you may have all seen before. And the one on the website at the moment is linked to the draft local plan review, the 2019 version, and the different layers. And I'm currently in the process of working with the web team to revamp this and update this in relation to the local plan document that will be going forward in pre-submission. So do keep an eye out. That will probably be done in, say, by the end of next month, and you'll be able to see the new layers which are more relevant. But it's definitely worth going to kind of have a look at the policies map. I think it's really useful, and we've had some really good feedback on this. Even though this is obviously just a screenshot, you'll be able to kind of zoom in on specific layers that you're interested in around the whole district, and whether you're just wanting to look at a development boundary of a parish, for example. But yeah, I just wanted to draw your attention to this. And now back to Alan. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. What you're seeing on this slide is just us trying to capture all the various bits and pieces that we will do to notify people, and bits and pieces we will have available. Katie's talked about the web version of the local plan document, both in the consultation portal and in its more graphic kind of representation in the interactive manner. Lots of this, if not 99% of it, is kind of based on our website. So that's how we anticipate people will be interacting with us and filling in their representations. It shouldn't be a surprise to people, because that's the way we've tried to do it in our last SADEMP consultation, certainly. We try to make it easy for people, and I hope in the updates that we've done, you will find that it does work fairly well. In trying to make sure people know about what we're doing, as it said there, we're going to have some sort of wide notification. Well, that's always what we do. We have people who've kind of joined the process, you know, back in 2016, 17. So we've got them on our list. You as parish and town councils are obviously also on our list, but we've got statutory consultees as well. So there's a whole raft of people who will be notified about what's going on and given the links to all of these documents. The third point there is yes, we want to make sure in advance of this thing going off, we don't just suddenly want to send you an email and then you think, oh my goodness, what's all that about? We just want to warm you up, basically, to what's happening in the broad timescales that we're working to. So we're doing 4 of these presentations for the benefit of parish and town councils to join into. And as it says, obviously, it's an opportunity for you to ask questions about the process. The content obviously is there, and we could get in some very detailed discussions about the content, but I think what we want you to do in due course, as Katie said, is to read the document and understand the words for yourself. The examination is where this is all leading. You will make representations, as will other people. And the examination, or particularly the inspector at the examination, will look over all of the comments that people have made. He will draw up lists of kind of topics that he wants to examine in some detail, and people will be invited to take part. So there's those of you who've been through that process before know that it is quite comprehensive. it says it might take 12 months. That's not sitting every day taking evidence and comments from people, but the whole process of putting it to examination, the examinations being held, questioning modifications that come out of it, that can take pretty much 12 months. So the ultimate aim of the examination is for the inspector to write their report, and that's presented to the Borough Council with the inspector's recommendations, and hopefully none of those will be a surprise. They usually come out during the examination, and the Borough Council can kind of go ahead to adopt the plan. So that's the aim. As well as those particular points there, we do the usual kind of briefings for the press, and use the kind of various channels that we have to get that information out. Some of you may have read in the EDP this morning, following an outing to the Regeneration and Development panel last night, there were kind of questions or comments from in the press about what we were doing. So, it's already starting. People are getting a bit of an understanding about what's going on. But if I turn on to the next slide, I get to a little bit more detail about the dates. I just mentioned the R&D panel there and the Cabinet meeting next week. And following on is the full council meeting a couple of weeks or so later. Following that, there may well be changes that Cabinet and Council ask to be made, but we will be making our final preparations for the consultation to start. And we kind of anticipate doing that the end of July. And as I said, it's probably going to last 8 weeks. I think in the current still uncertain climate in the pandemic, plus we're doing this over a summer period, I think we would extend that to 8 weeks, just to make sure that we give everybody an opportunity. By the end of September, we would probably be in a position to have all those representations kind of collected together, and then that's when we will formally submit the document and the relevant plan document and the relevant other documents to the Secretary of State. So that's going to happen kind of towards the autumn. An inspector will be appointed. I mean, we're already in discussions with the planning inspectorate about our timetable, so they can get their kind of timetabling in place. So that's when we move into the examination phase, as I discussed earlier. It's going to take a year or so. There is a timetable of this on the website, but I would think by the end of next year, we would have a jolly good idea about what the plan will contain and how it might need to change. And we'll certainly have a bit of a better idea about the time frame for the inspector producing his or her recommendations back to the Borough Council. So I think that's the last slide, and we got there we are. Yes, a nice calm picture for us all on this sunny evening. I'm sure we'd all rather be there, but that's our email address. Many of you know that. Many of you have got our individual email addresses, which is absolutely fine. So if there is anything that you think of following this session, and we'll move on to the questions in a moment, please email us, and we'll, as usual, try and help you out. So